Hello and welcome back to Fallon Moran Radio. In today's episode, I am going to be breaking down my breakthrough day experience so that you can understand the behind the scenes and what happens during a breakthrough day so that you can start to break through your own blocks on your own breakthrough day. Let's dive in. So back in October of 2025, I took a trip up to Canada to get my Master NLP Practitioner certification. Now, for those of you who are pretty regular listeners to the podcast, you know that I'm not from Canada. I'm from the United States. So what am I doing going over to Canada to get a certification? Well, here's the thing. This particular program is one that was run by a very good friend of mine that I met back in 2020, and she's been a mentor of mine for quite a long time. I've been on her podcast multiple times. She's come on the podcast very early on. Her name is Marsha Van Weinsberg. The reason why I decided to go with her program is because there was an element of rebellion to her program. Let's just put it that way. Her program's name is Outspoken, and there was something about learning from Marsha that really spoke to me because I saw what Marsha was doing and I saw who she was being while she was going through all of this. So I knew that if I was going to have any kind of resemblance in terms of whatever I do in my business, if I'm going to pave a path like that, then I have to, or it would be better suited for me to learn from her. So when we really got down to the nitty gritty, I learned a lot about Marsha and how she got her NLP certification. And I learned a lot about how she got to the point that she is at and how she was practicing very frequently the entirety of her NLP experience. And that is something that's missing from a lot of NLP programs. Like there are a lot of people who go get their certification, but they don't necessarily implement it or use it in any kind of way, shape, or form. Like there's a difference between people who are like, oh yeah, I can hear that this might be a limiting decision or a limiting belief, and the people who ask the meta and Milton model type of questions versus the people who just kind of like still approach coaching from a conscious place and ask like, oh, well, what makes you think that? Or, like, well, how can we work together to make that not a thing anymore? And so when I saw Marsha in practice, I was like, that's what I want to be going towards as a coach myself, as a business owner myself, as a creator, whatever label you want to put on it myself. So I decided to go with her program. She is Canadian. However, there's something going on behind the scenes where it would be a more globally recognized certification. So I'll let that lie. I'm not going to say anything. It's not my place to. Let's just put it this way. It's going to be for more than just North America, I think, at the end of the day. Now, that all being said, when I went to go up to Canada, the biggest and most important thing was that I learned how to facilitate a breakthrough day, which means that I go through all of the outline, go through the whole structure of a breakthrough day so that someone else can receive the breakthrough experience. That is the most important piece. Now, when you're going through a breakthrough day, I cannot stress this enough. It is the most breaking down of barriers. Like your brain just completely turns into mush, like applesauce by the end of a breakthrough day experience. And when your brain is just literally a pile of applesauce, you start to realize, oh, this is the way that I want to approach things, or this is probably the best way to move forward for that. So I'm going to give an example. Okay. When I was going through my breakthrough day experience, I actually have the daily tasks and implementation list that I wrote for myself here. It's super important for me to go through my day in such a way that I achieve something, because my number one value is accomplishment or achievement. And for a lot of people, and I've actually heard some really big names in the online business industry say that achievement is a very ego-based thing. However, that is not 100% true. The reason why is because if you value achievement, then what happens is every time you get something done, accomplished, achieved, then that gives you more fuel to keep going. I'm going to explain this in terms of towards motivators and away motivators. That might make a little bit more sense. For me, accomplishment and achievement is a towards motivator. I like to move towards things that make me feel accomplished. that make me feel like I've achieved something. And it's not because I'm looking for an ego boost. It's because the more I accomplish, the more I feel like I'm making an impact, the more I feel like I'm serving people, the more I feel like I'm getting things done. Okay. It is not an ego boost. It is because that's my way of knowing something has created an impact in the world. So keep going. Let's take, for example, my podcast, right? I have put out and published over 130 podcast episodes. While I was in Canada, there was a point where I literally looked at Renee, one of the women in our master practitioner cohort, and I asked her, and even, of course, everybody else was around there, should I keep my podcast? Like, I have over 125 episodes. Is it worth me keeping my podcast? Because it got to the point where I was like, I couldn't afford to pay the $20 a month to keep my podcast hosted. And I literally asked the question, is it worth me keeping my podcast? And of course, nobody gave me a straight answer because it's not their answer. It's not their question to answer. What they did, because they're NLP practitioners, was they reflected back to me, well, what's going on that you would ask that question? What is the reason for you asking that question? They were trying to understand my thought process, what my beliefs were, what was like, what is this? What is this? Why are you asking this question? Is what we were getting at. And at the end of the day, after my own breakthrough day experience, when I realized that accomplishment and achievement is my number one value, it became very apparent to me that the podcast must continue, because publishing over 125 episodes is nothing short of incredible in terms of having a podcast that has longevity these days. Oftentimes, people do not get past episode 3 when they go to make a podcast. They only get to episode 3 and that's it. There's a couple of really big names out there who I know of that are like chief marketing officers. They've gotten into photography and they've only put out like 5 episodes and that's it. That's the end of their podcast. Meanwhile, I'm a little humdrum nothing over here on the internet that probably not very many people know about, but I've put out over 132 podcast episodes. And by now it's probably closer to 140. And that's a lot to say. That's a huge achievement. Just the fact that you go past 3 episodes puts you in the top 10% of podcasts. And that was a statistic released back in 2025. So now at 132 episodes plus in 2026, where does that put me in terms of top percentage of podcasts? So even though I only have 2 ratings and reviews currently, and even though I only have 1,700 downloads, this podcast is amongst the top 10% in the world because I keep posting, because that accomplishment and that achievement is what fuels me. So keep going. And there are also away motivators. Oftentimes these are used in pain point marketing, right? So like the best one that I could think of as an example is any kind of financial point. So when people are saying, oh, I'm making 50K, really, when they're actually saying they're making 50K months, oftentimes for a very large majority of the population, 50K months is not like something they're looking to move towards, because people don't often value money as a towards motivator. Oftentimes when people have some kind of money issue, it's because they're looking to move away from something they're experiencing. So if they're making, let's just say for the sake of an example, let's say that somebody's making $2,000 a month. They're stuck financially. They feel a lot of stress. They feel a lot of pain. They don't want to keep feeling this in their financial situation anymore. They want to move away from that financial situation. So it's not because they want to move towards 50K months. It's because they want to move away from $2,000 income months. Okay. There's a difference, because when you're looking to move away from something, it's short-term fuel. When we're looking to move towards something, it's long-term fuel. So when I think of accomplishment and achievement, to me, it's the closer I can get to 1,000 episodes, the closer I can get to 800 episodes, the closer I can get to, having over 100 guests on the podcast, right? Like that's a goal to move towards. That's accomplishment and achievement. And that's nothing about my ego whatsoever. It is actually for other people because of the fact that it's creating more for someone else in my podcast episodes and what I'm putting out there than it is for like servicing me as a person. Okay. I have to make that point because when that person is huge, okay, that person makes 8 figures every year in his online business. And he has said it in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people on his podcast episode. And it pains me because it is not an ego thing if it's a value. It is not about your ego if it's one of your values. So another realization that I had when I was going through my breakthrough day was that you don't need to do things out of obligation. You need to do things according to your own set of values. And so it is incredibly important to know your values. And I'm not talking about going through your values like, oh, yeah, I went through Pinterest and I looked at this Pinterest board and I know what my values are now. No, you really don't know what your values are. Okay. Because until you get to the point that you break through and you break down a specific example, then it's so difficult for you to actually articulate what it is that you value and what you don't value. And the whole reason why I got to the values list that I got to was because I broke down an actual in life, real life experience that I have on a regular basis with rowing, the sport that I just absolutely love to death. Had I not gone to that place, I would not have actually realized these are my values. Okay. If I had forced whatever I wanted to do, it wouldn't truly have been as good of a breakthrough day because I would have been consciously trying to force something instead of allowing for my subconscious to take me where it needed to go. So it's super important and it's super incredible when you allow yourself the opportunity to go with what's coming up for you, the first thing that's coming up for your brain, the first circumstance or situation that's coming up for your mind, because that is going to allow for you to then bring it over to a different area. Okay. So another particular thing that I had also realized in terms of me being able to facilitate a breakthrough day was how incredibly important it is for me to come across as competent and confident to the other person. Now, I'm not in any way unconfident as a person typically. One of my biggest strengths, I actually went through an army breakdown of what my biggest strengths and my biggest weaknesses were. And my number one strength is confidence. So when I went through to facilitate a breakthrough day with someone, to me, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. I can do it. Like, I am very confident in the tools. I'm very competent in the outline and the structure of subconscious work. So I'm good. Like, I'm feeling good. There was not a worry at all, not a stress at all. I didn't have to go back and forth with my mentor. I approached her with 2 questions throughout the entire 8-hour day. And the 2 questions were more to do with the person who I was, facilitating for, her values as towards motivators or away motivators, because one of her very top values was actually an away motivator. And I was very concerned because it kept coming up. And every time I tried to ask the question differently, it still kept coming up as an away motivator. And so it was concerning for me because I was like, am I doing this? Am I asking the questions correctly? And I was. And so that was why I had a couple questions for her. However, it is so important for you to understand where you are energetically when you are facilitating a breakthrough day, because then you're going to be able to understand what that other person is essentially trusting. Like, they are putting their subconscious mind into the hands of you as a facilitator to help them reach whatever goal it is that they're looking for. Excuse me. And so it is very important for you to be okay and trust your skills and trust what you're doing. And there are times where things are going to go off the rails, and that's okay. That is normal. That is human. That happens. And the whole point of why I also went with Marsha's program is because of the way that you learn to course correct. There is no other program that course corrects nearly as efficiently, in my perspective, as Marsha's Outspoken program. You learn how to actually use this in real life. And Tommy hates when I use it on him. He really does, because he knows when I'm using it and he's like, okay, this is enough. Like, I know. And that's really to speak to the fact that when you start to implement it in more areas than just your business, you become a true practitioner of it. Like you become a living, breathing example of it. And that's ultimately what I wanted when it came to how I was going to use it for myself, my business, my family. I mean, I use it with my kids. Penelope had her chemotherapy. We were doing tapping, we were doing subliminals, we were doing, I can't tell you how many different things while she was in the hospital that were all out of the NLP toolbox. So, getting back to this breakthrough day experience, it was incredible because not only did I realize this is what I want to build more of my business around, my own values, it was incredible to hold space for someone else and watch what they went through because they finally realized this is why this is happening. I'm going to go this way. Course correction, right? This is why this is happening. I am going to choose to do something different even though this is an amazing fabulous opportunity. This is not the best opportunity right now because it's not in alignment with what I'm going through in my own breakthrough day currently. What my subconscious is more or less showing me is most important to go through. So a breakthrough day really truly does kind of like stop you in your tracks, and it is it is the biggest, like, for a lack of a better term, I don't want to call it like a stop sign or fork in the road. It's just like this huge realization that you didn't think you could possibly have. And oh my gosh, all of this finally is starting to seem cohesive and make sense in my mind. Of course, your mind is mush by the time you're done. And you laugh hysterically for hours upon hours when you're done with it because there just seems to be no way that any of that is all reality, and all of it is. And that's such a cool piece of what happens during an 8-hour breakthrough day. Of course, breakthrough days sometimes can be split, 4 hours on day one, 4 hours on day two, and you reschedule or whenever you need, whatever point in the calendar is most convenient, you can put the second day. However, having the 8 hours really truly is, in my perspective, the most transformative because that is when you really do break through so many blocks that you didn't even recognize were there that came up, and you just absolutely shot every single one of them down to come to the conclusion that yes, this is possible for you, whether it's your business, whether my particular breakthrough day experience was actually around my health. Like I said earlier, it had to do with crew. However, a lot of what goes on within your subconscious is also translatable. So you could take what those values are and transpose them to a different area of life. So what I did was I took my values and I transposed them from health to business, because when I think of my podcast, it really is an accomplishment. Like, it really truly is an achievement to keep posting, even though I'm sure that none of you share my episodes. And that's fine. I'll keep yapping. I'll yap all day because it's not about just a number. It's about every episode has a different piece to it. And every episode, something different comes through for another person. And every episode, someone might hear something differently. I've listened back to some of my own episodes. And when I hear myself talk, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have an idea to kind of stem off of this one and to branch off of that. And it's still somewhat the same. However, at the end of the day, it's still very different. And for me to hear that statistic the other day, that as soon as you pass episode 3 on your podcast, again, that was back in 2025, as soon as you pass episode 3, you are amongst the top 10%, 10% of podcasts globally. Like, yeah, I'm going to keep going. I gotta. For me, it is a must. And so breaking that down and seeing that, it also correlates to my second value, which is actually to be in service of others, which I didn't think that it was, because in all honesty, I never really thought about myself as someone who is in service to other people. However, when I was going through my breakthrough day, the whole reason why it was super important to me was because I was going through the context of crew. And for me, rowing is just like, it is, I love it. It is phenomenal to me. It's an amazing experience. And the whole reason why I show up is because it's not about me when I'm in the boat. It's about the other people in the boat. I have to show up for them. When I am in the boat and I am training with another person, it is not about me. I show up because it's about them. It is just as much about them because they are rowing the boat with me and we must cross the finish line together. And so it did not occur to me that I was ever going to have that as a value. And here it is, it's my number 2 value. Being in service to others is my number 2 value. So of course, when I think of how I wanted to restructure my business for 2026, I was like, of course, I have to do the podcast. I have to, because how much more do you get listening to me for 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes sometimes? How much more value, how many more ideas, how many more different perspectives do you get by listening to me for 20, 30 minutes at a time than if you were to watch a minute long video? You get 10, 100, maybe even 300 times more of a difference and an experience by listening to the podcast than you do from a 1 minute video that I put out on TikTok. So to me, it's more in service for others to go through a podcast episode and to record more podcast episodes. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm making it my mission this year to put my podcast first and to put the YouTube videos that go along with it, because whether I realize it or not, and I don't think I did at the time, but I realize it more now, my long form content, there's so much more richness to it because I have no guidelines as to like, oh, well, it needs to be a minute. And oh, well, you need to have this really super intricate hook. And oh, well, you need fuck all that. I'm going to give you exactly what I know. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to educate you. I'm going to give you a different perspective. Who the hell knows? Because it depends on the day I'm recording, right? But what I do know is that something's going to be different from when you start listening to an episode to when you finish listening to an episode. And that's what matters, because that's in service to you. Something different is going to happen, a different action, a different thought, a different perspective. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it's changed something and you've taken action. That's the next most important piece, because if you're not taking action, then what are you doing? And if you're not taking action, I know a really great place to start. I have a breakthrough day down below in my stand store. That's a great place to start. And I'm going to tell you right now, yes, the 8 hours is fantastic, back like front from start to finish. However, it can be broken down if you need for it to be broken down, and you get an additional 5 weeks of coaching. 1 week up front before the breakthrough day, and then 4 weeks after the breakthrough day. And all of it is personalized, individualized to you. Everything is completely confidential. We go through and I give you subliminals and hypnoses that are completely customized to you after your breakthrough day. And right now it's $1,500. I know that you're gonna be like, whoa, big sticker. Not a big sticker if you think about it, because of how much depth that we go through. And honestly, I really want to charge $3,300 for this. So $1,500 is like way less than 50% of what the actual price is going to be by the end of 2026. So jump on it now. Okay. I'm only doing 2 a month because that's how much time I have to be able to give someone. So if you're interested, go check out the stand store link down in my show notes and book it, because I only do 2 a month. I have it limited. There's only 2 seats a month. Are you going to be one of them? I hope you will be, because I know that you have something to break through. And I know that you're tired of going through the same freaking cycle on repeat. And I know that you're so sick of being burnt out to a crisp and spinning your wheels over and over again. So do yourself a favor and break through it, because you're not going to break through it doing the same shit you've done up to this point. You got to do something different. That's where I come in. Hi, my name is Fallon. It's like Jimmy Fallon, but it's my first name. If you're watching this on YouTube, please let me know, show a comment, hit subscribe, smash the like button, all the normal YouTube things. If you're listening to this on the podcast waves, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review. I am going to be shouting them out. That's going to be the next episode that I do right before I have to go leave for, I have to pick up Penelope. So please leave your ratings and reviews, because you will get shouted out and it also helps the podcast grow. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you are going to book your breakthrough day literally instantly, because I swear to God, this is the most effective and efficient way for you to restructure your business, your life, your health, whatever it might be, your relationships. And you are going to experience something wildly insane that you didn't think you were going to ever experience before. I'm warning you now. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, thanks. Love you. Bye.